Hey guys, it's Book of Catherine. So I apologize ahead of time. I already filmed this and it only recorded 4 minutes of the entire thing. So and I discovered it after I took off all my makeup and stopped looking super cute. So this is what we've got. So AI. If you have been following me from the beginning, you will remember that I did an entire section on AI Day. I covered AI when no one else was doing it. There was a day after the Oscars in March when suddenly there were a huge amount of tech announcements and they were all AI based and they all did it between like 8 a.m. and like 9:30 a.m. on a Monday morning right after the Oscars or a Tuesday morning right after the Oscars, and then it was gone. They just did all these press releases, got it out, and then it was gone. And the AI was incredible, like AI from left to right, and it was scary. It was really, really scary, and it's scary, and it was clear that they were going towards a world of automation. And but what was interesting to me is that the things that weren't announced, that didn't eventually come out and come on down the line, the things that I was like, there were announcements by YouTube. There were certain announcements that I thought would have a bigger impact or be talked about. And instead, they were never mentioned again. And I started looking into it. Like I wrote about AI Day, but if you've noticed, I haven't written about AI Day since. Another thing that I covered as that month went on, as I continued going into AI Day and writing about AI Day, I discovered that they were using AI. The left was using AI as a scare tactic. And we now know, I didn't know about AstroTurf at the time, but they were using astroturfing. And now that I look back on it, I'm like, why would they dump all these articles in the morning from an hour and a half? Now that I'm telling you guys this, I'm like, that doesn't sound right. Wow, that doesn't sound right all of a sudden. Unless they're just trying to pepper the internet with things. Because they didn't wipe them afterwards. They just dumped it and then they just stopped releasing everything. And what happened was and I was just screen capturing all of it, because it was just so that it was out there for access if you started researching it. But then it wasn't like up in the news again. It wasn't in any of the news feeds. So, but it would be out there if you were like researching it, knew what to look for. And the reason you'd be out there researching it and knowing what to look for is because right after they did that AI Day dump, they started promoting a candidate. And now that I'm saying that, I'm like, I'm hearing it in my head going, I feel so stupid. There is a candidate that came out that they were talking about. They were just starting doing videos and advertising for this DNC candidate, this Democratic candidate. And this candidate wanted to do a UBI, a universal basic income. And what I noticed was at the same time, all this astroturfing was going on at the time, like Vox Media and Vice News. They were all doing these pieces on how automation is going to wipe out society in the next 15 years. Well, we've been hearing that for a long time. I know a lot of you guys are new and you are new on the block, but I mean, they were saying this doomsday thing of like, and there was even one video that raised up, like literally did a rise of the machines, but did it try to put it in a positive way, did this like communist looking big machine, built this like 30-foot machine of man raising up this machine, and then they were all like sitting at its feet worshiping this machine. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this is just weird. And I was like, why are all these pieces? And I didn't necessarily trust any of the things they were saying as it was. Like, they were really putting, what I know now is the Agenda 2030 slant on all the news stories. And afterwards, I found out from Cheryl Atkinson that if you look on her site, if you go to her website and you click on resources, one of the top pages she has on the resources are the top 10 AstroTurf sites. And in the top 10 AstroTurf sites, and remember, she's an amazing journalist. Like, she gave up her career as a journalist and gave up all the money that entailed and all the money she could have gotten to hold her journalistic integrity and did all the sources for this, and she's done other pieces as well on other items in the government and things like that. And she's like a liberal caught in between journal ethics. It's a hard place to be, but she follows the journalistic integrity and the ethics and goes where the facts are. And so she said the top 10 AstroTurf sites were like Vice was on there, Vox Media was on there. What was interesting was also Jon Stewart. And I was kind of laughing about that today because I had always, like, I was always, as things were going on to this year, I was just kind of like, I was finding all these clips of Jon Stewart and I was like, oh my gosh, this doesn't look right. Like, I was like, I was always seeing it going, now that I know all this stuff, like, I had believed him when I was younger. I was like, I didn't understand why a comedian was doing news, like he was the first one to do news. And I remember perking up when they said like 80% of young people were listening to Jon Stewart as their news source. And I was like, and I think I stopped watching about that time when I heard that because I was like, oh, it's probably being used as the news source. And I was like, I don't want to use comedy as, I stopped listening to news altogether. I remember that. So when I was watching the BBC news site, it's so funny. I would click on every single thing except every single tab, like science, technology, space. I click on every tab except for news and politics. I'd avoid them all. I click on Middle East, I click on China, but not news and politics. Those were the two I never clicked on. And then eventually they all went. I talked about that on my Twitter feed. I talked about how they just eventually 1 year, like in 2014, they fired all their Panorama. They fired all 400 journalists on their Panorama team. And it was the number one, Panorama is their investigative journalism team. And, BBC was the number one journalism site in the world. Like, they'd been known for hundreds of years as like the best in journalism. They had really high integrity, and Panorama shows that, like their old episodes show that, even though they keep trying to wipe them. And you can't find very many. I did when I first got online. I found like all these ones all the way back, like all these ones going back to the 80s. I was so lucky and found all these amazing investigative journalist pieces. But they fired in 2014, they fired all 400, and then they didn't produce anything for like 2 years. And then all of a sudden they started producing pieces, and I was like, what is all this? Like, all of this is just, it doesn't look any different than anything they ever do. And I was just like, this looks like everything else in the media. And they just completely switched, kind of like the Fifth Estate up in Canada. It did the exact same thing, and, but I'm still grateful for the time I had on the BBC. I found out about the space jump when our media wasn't talking about it. But by then, Cheryl Atkinson and Lefton talking about astroturfing. And my point is, in all this, is to say, go back to AI. I got totally off topic there, I think. I'm sorry I already filmed this and now I'm really tired. My point with astroturfing is that Jon Stewart. I was laughing about that this morning because I was like, right, Jon Stewart. I had listened to him when I was younger, believing that trickle-down economics was an evil thing. I thought that didn't exist. And now within 6 months of Trump, we're like at 4%, growth GDP. And I'm like, that's like literally trickle-down economics. And I was like, I remember just being like, I believe John Oliver, I believe Jon Stewart, I believe the entire left-wing bingo. I totally was like, and I believed all it. They didn't just do them. They did it in every area of the media. It was proved wrong in, like 4 months flat. And I was like, oh, that was really rough to see. And so, but people really worship Jon Stewart. They had a lot of clips of him on the internet. And the more that I would research, the more I'd be like, this doesn't seem right. Like, this news source doesn't seem to be like a real news source. Like, none of this seems to be actual news. Like, what's going on? Like, I don't get it. And then I found out he was an AstroTurf site, and I've talked about that, which means it was all like paid media to release certain stories and certain narratives out to the media, and Vox and Vice have taken their places now. I think that's because podcasting is really big. So they have John Oliver to take over Jon Stewart's place. And then podcasting is really big. So they have Vox News and Vice Media. So they're doing these, but what was funny is that Jon Stewart's the only guy that's ever said he got onto like Larry King Live. Look up the interview. He got on the Larry King Live, and Larry was like, I have some tweets to read to you. And Jon Stewart's the only one who's ever been like, oh yeah, from who? Just some tweets. Who are they? And he's like, well, some tweets. People have tweeted. He's like, what people? Who people? What people? How do you know they're even people? And I think it's interesting that an AstroTurf site, an AstroTurf show, is the one that is the only one ever who's just been like, so what if a tweet said it? You don't know where it came from. You don't know who they are. Why are you even bringing their questions to me? Why does that matter? And they're right. Like, why are we like there used to be a filter of like, who it comes from matters. And there used to be a thing like even now today in the papers, they won't accept a question to the editor or a letter from the editor unless you produce your name and your address. They won't take anonymous letters, you know? So that, so just reading aloud people's tweets, anyone can send it in. And I can't believe people on certain shows today just read out letters that they get sent in. And I'm like, you don't know who wrote that. It promotes a certain narrative. And I'm just like, you have no idea who emailed you that. You have no idea who emailed you that. Like, if it's sensational, maybe you should think about that. If it seems too good to be true or too crazy to be true, maybe it is. Like you think that these amazing sites that are paid money, tons and tons of money, aren't above like sending fake emails to people with fake stories to get you to say something on your show. If your show reads letters aloud on the internet and you're conservative and they're trying to take down conservatives, I'm just like, people are like, I was talking to someone today and they were like, I never thought they'd do that. And I was like, why? Why do you think they'd never do that? Is there something in their ethical code that's made you think that the left, they're communists? Communists will do anything. Just, geez, Louise, look at the Soviets. Like, communists will do anything. They will do what it takes. So going back to this, the AI thing, the UBI, I looked into the guy. I looked into him and I found out that, and I posted this on my research, he was saying UBI because of universal basic income needs to happen because, and he had the same smile as Obama. Exact same poses as Obama too. He's this Asian guy. I can't remember his name. He was just like, same poses, same frames, same everything. I actually lined up pictures and I was like, look, identical smiles. That's not an accident. That's not an accident. They need a ringer. You know what I mean? Like Obama. And to say the same kind of hope and change things, right? And to make everyone believe they'll make everything better. But when you look behind it, who owns this guy? I found out it was some chemical thing. The site that they have that comes up in America is one thing, but I kept digging, found out it's an oil and chemical company from Europe. Oil, gasoline, chemical. Isn't that interesting? This guy's a climate change guy. He's a climate change, clean energy, the whole thing, but he's owned by an oil giant? Why do you think that is? Let me tell you what happens with UBI. UBI is where they sell Americans on everyone getting $1,000 a month. In taxes, well, isn't that interesting? Once everybody takes $1,000 a month in taxes, then people aren't as incentivized to work. They don't need to work. They can go on. They are like this welfare thing. And let me tell you, when they will go in to get that UBI check, they'll be told about the other kind of social income. But no matter what, that $1,000 a month check will break our bank. We will not be able to sustain it. But just like Bernie Sanders ran, he said the same thing about Medicare, and he had no answers for how we were going to pay for it. He had no answers. They said you could tax all of our rich at 100% and it still wouldn't pay for one program for a year, for 2 years. And he had no answer to that. His job isn't to pay for it. His job is to just sell this climate change agenda, this Agenda 2030, and make everyone think that, they believe they're good people, Meanwhile, they also represent Big Pharma and they also represent, they represent all these other things, Hollywood and Wall Street and lawyers, and I'm just like, right, they represent all these other industries, but they just happen to fight for for the poor and the weak, right? But they represent Big Pharma and Wall Street, who owns all the hospitals, and, it's just so interesting, like, but they fight for the weak and the poor, so it just makes this great soundbite, right? So anyway, this UBI, the thing is once everyone takes it and it breaks our bank, yeah, they made a promise that we have the UBI, but you have forgotten that Agenda 2030 promises to end world poverty, world extreme poverty. No one in the world will live below extreme poverty by the year 2030. Do you know what extreme poverty is? $1.25 a day. So by the end, this climate change kids and these eco-socialists, you can tell them, by the way, your own agenda says that by the end of year 2030, that you will have succeeded in not being impoverished if you live on $1.75 a day. So they'll sell you on $1,000 a day or $1,000 a month. But that doesn't mean they have to keep it at that, because once we turn socialist, once we go into everyone's taking it, it'll break our bank, and the World Bank takes over, and they can fulfill their promises by paying you $1.75 a day. And let me tell you, their goal is a feudal system. Now, let me tell you what this whole automation thing, you know how I know automation isn't going to happen in the next 20 years? Number one, because I actually know what AI can do. I know what it can do, and I know what it can't do. I know how many videos have been released to the public about what AI can do and the games that they've beaten and all these things that they can do, and I know what can be faked. I know what the software can actually do. I know how far. You guys know I've been researching. You've been following me from the beginning. You know how far my research has gone. And I dropped it. And there was a reason I dropped it. Because I found out what AI can do and what it can't do. And there's certain things it can do. There's certain things it can't do. You know what it can do? It is extremely expensive to adopt AI into your business. It is extremely expensive. The only people who can afford to do that are the massive, huge, big, multi-billion-dollar corporations that are already involved in Agenda 2030 and who have millions of customers, who have a ton of customers, and that can only happen in big cities. You can bet that your diner, your Denny's that's in the middle of your corner town out there in rural America, they can't afford to go automatic. Are you kidding me? There's no way these machines cost frickin', and not only that, but the market doesn't demand it. Whenever they tell you things are going to go this way, not the market's demanding it and people want this and they want automation. People don't want automation. You know how I know that? There's a grocery store chain that came over from the UK that offered that. They were a fully automated grocery store and it died. It died a very fast death. You know why that is? No one went there. You know why they didn't go there? They actually released articles on it. They said it turned out that people didn't want a fully automated experience. The market doesn't drive full automation. Are you kidding me? It's not going to replace 20% of the workforce. You know how else I know it's not going to replace 20% of the workforce? Besides knowing what AI can and cannot do, and knowing that it crashes cars all over the place, and knowing that no one wants to actually take an AI car, and knowing that Big Brother's trying to shove it down your throats. You know how I know that is? Because that is what the entire minimum wage movement is. You ask all these minimum wage workers and these tips people and everything like that. You look into the Reason TV documentaries. Sorry, I'm really hurting. I really have to move around. The Reason TV things, and it turns out that they're pushing all these higher wages, these $15 wages, because it shuts down smaller businesses, allows all the customers to go to the big businesses, and then the big businesses can't afford the $15 an hour wage, and so they have to go automated. And so the car washes in New York are like, we had to go automated because we couldn't afford our workers. But it's like the best thing we ever did. It was super expensive and we never would have done it. But thanks, you made the wage so high that we had to. That's why they're pushing the entire high wage thing. It's so that you have to go automated, so that you have to drive the market for wages for workers. Number one, going up there, it forces people to hire illegal immigrants. So it forces the illegal immigrants from leaving the country. It keeps them here instead of hiring people that are normal wage. Second of all, it forces people into going into automation because they don't want to, because it's too freaking expensive, because automation is sold by the corporations for like hundreds of thousands of dollars a machine. And the market doesn't demand it. They know their customers don't want it. Why do you think people go to car washes? They want their things to be hand dried. They want their things to be hand washed. They don't want a machine doing it. Why do you people think people choose? There are plenty of automated hand washes out there. Car washes out there. Why do they choose one that actually have people washing their car instead? Why do you think that is? And why do you think assembly lines today do not have automated things assembling their things? Why do you think that is? There are still things that automation cannot do. Give me a break. And this robot, Sophie, I figured out it was one big play. I found out she can't fly anything to the moon. Give me a mother... You know what else? I'll show you something that can be done. Let me show you. Let me give you a quick trick. You guys sell... There are so many things that can be faked. So many things that can be faked on the internet. So many things that can be faked on it. That's why you need sources on the ground and you need to know your site and do your research on the side and find things out. So I found out AI and all that kind of stuff. Like, you know, Amazon has been threatening to do AI and automation. I've known about it for like years. They've been trying to hire people for 10 years and then they keep canceling the projects. Why do you think that they keep hiring people inside their warehouses instead of going automated? Why do you think that is? You think they want the mess of like, you know, having to obey our laws and everything like that and having people bring in undercover cameras? Why do you think they're still keeping people when they have the technology to actually have it all automated? Still don't have the robots to make the high level decisions that people make. And they're nowhere close. If you look at the early research, AI has been going on since the early 1950s. And if you look at that research from them, you'll find out why it'll never. You got to be kidding me. So anyway, let me go ahead and fake some things on YouTube, since there's so much that's faked on YouTube and so many fakers out there and so many people who don't do the things that not even experts in the things they say they're experts in. And you know how easy it is to fake your parents out. Well, how easy do you think it is to fake you out on YouTube? So excuse me while just a minute. I need to go for a quick workout. I'm going to go for my morning jog right now. So just one moment. Ooh, I'm back. Oh, God, that was such a workout. Wow. Amazing workout. I just totally went for a jog for 30 minutes. And no, wait, I don't have legs. I can't jog. I can only lift a 2-pound weight with my arm 5 times. But I sure look like I went working out, don't I? It's called Evian spray, you guys. You know how easy it is to fake things with astroturfing and actors, even the SJW things and stuff like that. The stuff that they're faking out there. Here, read your line. Here, then they'll kick. Here, it enforces PC, and people are scared to say anything to their neighbor because they think they're going to get punched in the mouth. The stuff I've been figuring out. Yeah. What a workout. Nobody can fake anything on camera. No one can lie at all, because the libel laws have totally changed, so the free press can say anything they want. AstroTurf is out of control. So yeah, all they want you to do is vote for a Democratic candidate that wants UBI because it sounds so good. But they don't tell you that then they'll just boom lower it to $1.75 and you won't be in extreme poverty. Don't you know how socialism works? No, you don't. Because I found out that kids are taught in school that democracy, they are taught the handbook they are taught the propaganda, they are taught by the propaganda handbook. Do you know what the propaganda handbook is? Hitler used it when he did 1930s Hitler's Germany. He used the book Propaganda to do it. And in that book, Propaganda, it teaches that democracy is an elite group of people at the top making the rules for everybody else. No. People don't know what democracy is. They don't know they can go vote for their mayor, which they really need to do. If you watch this video, you'll see they're aiming for your mayors first because they think you're not looking, which you're not, because you don't know democracy exists. No, your mayors are the most important people. They're the ones to be eyeballing and looking at and looking into for corruption and bribes and things from ICLEI. ICLIE, ICLI. They are the lawyer's office for the UN. They're the lawyer's office that goes around this nation and works with mayors and city councils and bribes them to do Agenda 2030 and make your cities into walkable cities so that you can't even use your cars. It is, and they can't bother with the cities in middle America, all the little cities. It's time to move, and there's plenty of free land out there, and a bunch of businesses that still make made in America. And by the way, I went to an antique shop yesterday. Sorry, I was using the spray today. And I found these little spray bottles. And I remember back in California finding these little spray tins. Same air freshener spray tins. On sale. On sale, they'd be $5.99. These little spray things this big. I think that was at the outlets out there. $5.99 for a little spray can. That's a big corporate giant. Go right on down my street to an antique shop, and they've just got these little bottles, and full price. They're $5.99. And their sprays, when I spray it, it lasts for 24 hours. And then I just have to spray that into the trash can, one spray. And wouldn't you know it, one spray, and I don't have to put those little things in my trash can to, take the cat poop away, make the smells, and spend all that money on the cat poop. I just spray it with this spray because it's an oil. It's oil for the room. They use aerosol because it doesn't work. Use oil sprays, last forever. I found that, and it's made by a local artisan. Local artisans are the biggest capitalists of all, but they teach that it's the opposite. They teach that the socialists are the ones that are the capitalists. Amazing. Bernie Sanders comes from the ultimate artisan state, I've learned. Everyone buys local there, and yet they all vote Democrat. Isn't that incredible? They're voting against capitalism because climate change is an anti-capitalist agenda. The UN already admitted that. You can look it up. Big article on Business Insider. Love you guys. Don't fall into the AI trap. It's just a scare tactic. It's just a scare tactic to get you vote Democrat because they've got nothing else to run on. Always remember, when it makes you feel fear, it's probably just a herding tactic based on a lie. If there's one thing I've learned over the last year, that's it. From all the research and history, that's the thing. Love you. Bye. Gotta go rest for my jaw.